Welcome everyone. Great to have you here. Does it sound okay? Everyone hear me all right? Excellent. So we're going to talk today about going from pole position, which if you guys know racing, that's the first car in the pack, to sole position, where you're maybe the only car on the track. So that's what we're going to talk about today. As a competitive racer myself and as a race instructor, I've got some original photography, not even having to use stock photography, to share some of the analogies and stories today. Also, I'm a diehard baseball fan. My wedding ring has baseball seams on it. Yes, my wife approved. So the keynote this morning not only was amazing because it was like baseball, but I'm a client experience guy. That's what I do. I'm an experience maker. Client Savvy helps firms design, implement, and measure experiences for clients. So that intersection of baseball and customer experience this morning was like the best keynote ever. So I'm sorry to let all of you down by not being that awesome, but we'll try to have some fun today. Just a little bit about my credentials. This is my race car. How's that for branding? It's an MR2. That's the car. So MR savvy, client savvy. You should have seen the lady's very disappointed face when I went to the DMV to register my title, and I turn in the sheet and she goes, "Mr. Savvy, really?" It's like, come on, it's branding. It's branding. So the secret to going fast. That's really going to be the core of our talk today. The secret of going fast is looking ahead. And that might sound obvious, but when you're racing and things are moving fast, it's really hard to keep your eyes 2 or 3 turns ahead. And if you're not keeping your eyes 2 or 3 turns ahead, you're not going to exit this turn set up to take the next turn. So you're going to be slower going in the turn, you'll be slower coming out of the turn, you're not going to have a good line for the turn after that, and everything falls apart. And I've got an example I'll show you. So what does that have to do with AEC? What does that have to do with marketing and business development and sales? And my thesis today is that if you're looking ahead, if you're looking down the road that your clients are on, you're going to know what's coming up for them before they know what's coming up for them. And it's going to put you in a better position to serve them, deliver experiences that are meaningful, and ultimately help them succeed. And when you become that person, when you become that partner in their business that helps them succeed, who else are they going to call? That's how you go from being first place. And I know we got a room full of winners here. You wouldn't be here if you weren't winning on a regular basis. But how do you go from first place to the only game in town? And that's really what we're going to talk about. So this is my daughter, Leah, my second daughter. I blew up my first engine in a hard left turn. The oil didn't turn with the car. So we had to put a new engine in the car. It's twice as much power, a lot of fun. So she helped build the car. It's my youngest son, and Leah again doing the suspension, and it's really cool. I think I'm handy, and me and Eli are working on one side of the car, and Leah looks over and goes, "Dad, you got that one on backwards. It goes like this." I mean, she kept me straight the whole way through. I don't know how I would have built the car without Leah. This is my oldest daughter, Rebecca, on the racetrack. This was her first day driving. She did not drive my car because she doesn't like a stick shift, so she drove her 2004 Hyundai Elantra that she took off the racetrack and into a barrier and broke the grill. But she said, "Dad, I learned something." I'm like, "Good, what's that?" She's like, "I never want to do that on the road." I'm like, "Thank you." So, little plug, if anyone has children that are driving or soon to be driving, or one day you hope to have children that are driving, leading cause of death, age 16 to 25, is behind the wheel of a car. We do not teach our young people how to drive. That's why I'm passionate about the sport. I got into it when I was young because it was fun. I took a long break because we had 4 kids. I got back into it when the kids were getting close to driving age because I wanted to make sure I taught my kids how to drive and be safe. I wanted them to be safe. Streetsurvival.org. If you have a young person in your life, it's $95. It's put on by Tire Rack, and it's a full day of driving instruction. You spend 3 hours one-on-one with the coach on a track driving. You get 3 hours in a classroom. It will save a young person's life. That's my social good for the day. If you know a young person in your life you care about, streetsurvival.org. I am one of their instructors, so if you're in the North Carolina area, you might get me. But they do 60 to 80 courses over the country each year. So that's Becca. She's now 20. She bought a Miata this year with her own money, so she got the bug of driving and has not been in an accident. And then this is my son Benjamin. This is 1 year and 1 day ago, his very first race, 2 months after getting his license. And I talked about keeping your eyes up and the importance of keeping your eyes up. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch Benjamin on his lap. And when you see his eyes go down, put your hands up, okay? I want to see if you guys catch the moment. Now you see his eyes down. He was doing great. He ended up, if you take away the 4-second penalty from knocking over 2 cones, he ended up first place in the novice class his first day. So he was doing great. That was his 3rd lap. And you'll notice, right about here, he had his eyes up the whole way. And literally, like 5 frames before he spins out and loses control, you see his eyes go down. And there was a cone, and he just looked down to get around that cone. And in looking down to get around that cone, he lost his line for the next one. The car spun around. And he turned on the wipers. And I told him, you're going to do 3 things today, your first day racing. You're going to spin out, you're going to turn on the wipers on accident, and you're going to drag a cone across the finish line. And he did all 3 right there. So now, the year before, I was at a race, and he wasn't old enough to drive, but he came down to watch. And my fastest lap, I spun around right before the finish line, and the fastest way to finish was put it in reverse and go across backwards. So he comes by it honestly. Anyway, not everyone in my house races. That's my wife, and our cow in front of our race car. So a little bit about me. So what is more satisfying? Is anyone here, do you have any clients where you're their sole provider? You get 100% of the work that they give? Couple of ish. Are they profitable? If all of your clients gave you all of their work, how many proposals would you have to do? And so if you didn't have to do proposals, what could you do? So anyone, if you could get rid of all your proposals and do something else, what would you do? What would you do?
The rest of the marketing I never get to do.
The rest of marketing you never get to do. All right. Who here has already heard something today that like, man, I wish I had time to go do that? Do you feel like you could add more value to your firm? Would it be more satisfying to your soul? I'm not, saying pushing up proposals isn't fun, meaningful work, but there's other stuff to marketing. There's other things we'd like to do. And so going from pole position to sole position, not only is it advantageous for the business, it's advantageous for your personal career and your personal development. And it lets you have some time to do some fun things that you really want to do. Sole position buyers, they buy more. You get 100% share of wallet. Has anyone heard the term share of wallet before? A couple of hands. So you ask anyone in AEC, talk to me about your client loyalty, and I hear 85% of our work is from repeat clients. You could have 100% of your work from repeat clients and go out of business because you have no new work coming in the door. All right? So I think that's a terrible metric. Share of wallet is a much more meaningful metric, and it's one that marketers should be tracking in their business. Of the work a client possibly could give you, what percentage of it are you getting? So if they're spending $10 million a year on your kind of stuff that you do, and you're getting $1 million a year of the work, you've got a 10% share of wallet. So it's a metric every marketer should be tracking and reporting up to the executive leadership team. It's a great way to show, hey, when we do this with marketing, look what happens to our share of wallet. And as share of wallet goes up, the amount of proposals you have to write tends to go down. Sole position buyers pay more. I mean, they're not competing you. They're not cross-shopping you with others. You get improved margins because you're value pricing your work. You're not cost-basing your work. You're pricing your work based on the value that you're delivering. You have lower customer acquisition costs. That's another metric that marketers should be familiar with. Your cost of acquiring a new customer. Who here has written a proposal that cost over $50,000 to create? There's some hands, right? Who's written a proposal that took $10,000 to create? I mean, I'm talking not printing cost. I'm talking, internal time. You've got your billable people working on a proposal instead of billing time. Proposals are expensive. Cost of acquisition is very expensive in this industry. You get enhanced marketing. If you're spending less time on proposals, you're more time strategic marketing. And sole position buyers tend to refer people. They'll tell everyone why I send all of my work to you. I mean, we're in the Hyatt. I'm titanium on Marriott, so I'm staying down the street at the A-Loft because I'm loyal. I'm a brand advocate. I tell people how much I love the brand and why, and I got a text message today saying, hey, Ryan, just checking in, making sure your room and everything is okay with your stay so far. Well, I mean, they care about me, and I'm going to tell people about that. One government accountability office study shows that sole source contracts produce 61% more profit than competitively bid work. So aside from less time on proposals and lower customer acquisition cost and all those other things, there's data that shows it's just more profitable. So this is a position we should be striving for. We should be racing. I'm not going to be too cheesy all day, I promise. We should be working hard to get into that sole position with our clients. So how do we get from pole position to sole position? And we're really going to cover two big arcs in today. I'm going to talk about 6 insights and then 6 value creators. So those are kind of our two pieces as we go through these two themes. Now, I did say I've got 4 children. They are loud and wonderful people, so I am used to being interrupted. So don't save your questions for the end. If there's questions, if there's comments, if you think if I just said something absolutely idiotic, I would love to hear it so we can have a conversation. And I learn more from my audiences usually than I teach them. So please make me smarter and ask your questions along the way. So how do we get from pole position to sole position? You got to create value. You got to be seen as a value creator, and then you got to deliver that value in a compelling way. And oftentimes we'll get one out of these two, but without both, we're missing our opportunity to really separate ourselves from the competition. So be value creators, that's our focus, and then deliver the value in a way that your clients say, man, I want to have that experience again. That's exactly what the speaker this morning from the Bananas was talking about. What was, we want those memory-making moments. We want every fan to walk away saying, I want to do that again. That was an experience worth repeating. Now, I mean, that's going to a baseball game with some silly antics. Can you do that for a wastewater treatment plant? And you laugh, but why not? Why not? Your client's going to spend, hours, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, maybe years of their life on the receiving end of working through this project. It could be a career-making project for them. And to you, it's a wastewater treatment plant. It's billable hours, it's work. But we could be doing something really special, meaningful, and important for our client. And if we miss that, if we don't have that in our eyesight, if we're not looking ahead to what they're trying to accomplish, both personally but also organizationally, we're going to miss the opportunity to be value creators. Does that make sense? So what's your eyes up foundation? Here's 3 things. We've done over 3 million client surveys in the AEC industry. So I've heard a lot of client feedback from your clients in the last 20 years. And very, very clear what clients want. On a weighting of 100, like 0 to 100, things like reputation, knowledge, and industry expertise are like 6, 12, and 18%. You have to have those things. Right? It's like going to the gas station, putting gas in your car. The gas is supposed to work. You don't get credit for it. Right? You only notice the gas if there's water in it and now your engine's sputtering. You don't get credit for that stuff. That's what you have to have. And guess what? Every one of your competitors has that too. You're going to be on the racetrack with every one of them if that's what you think you're differentiating on. Go on your website right now. Pull up your corporate website. I guarantee it's talking about your expertise, your reputation, and your industry knowledge, just like all your competitors are. What clients really care about, with a 98% correlation to raving fandom, is you engage me as a partner. I'm a partner in your business. You're a partner in my business. When you do that, when clients feel like they've got a partnership with you, there's a 98% chance that they are a raving fan, they're spending more with you, they're funneling work your direction instead of somewhere else, and they're telling other people they can't wait to work with you again. A focus on my outcomes. That's a corollary to partnering. That was a 88% correlation with creating raving fandom. And then proactive communication, that was a 78% correlation. People don't want you to be responsive. I mean, they do. But they want you to anticipate and share with them in advance. So these are the 3 things your clients care about most. And if you can nail those 3, value creation tends to work pretty well. So what does that look like? Partnering. Ask the client, what are you trying to accomplish? And then what's our role in helping them get there? Go back to the office, ask 10 project managers, the biggest project you're working on right now, what is your client trying to accomplish? Who thinks they're going to get 10 answers? Good. Right? Who thinks 5 of them are going to know what their client's trying to accomplish? I'm not seeing a whole lot of confidence here, right? It's amazing. It's amazing how rarely your technical staff are asking this question to really understand what matters to the client. We're eyes on outcomes. Some more race themes, right? Like, ask your clients, how are you being measured? What are you reporting to the board? How are you being held accountable, technical counterpart that I'm supporting working through this project? If you don't know how they're measuring success, how in the world are we going to help them get there? And so sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. The good news is none of your competitors are doing it any better. So that's why you all kind of, win 33% of the proposals you go after, because, 3 firms apply and they kind of pull a name out of a hat. But if you're really focused on their outcomes, if you're understanding what their measurements are, and I've got a great case study on this in a little bit, you can propose differently, you can pursue the work differently, you can kick off the meeting differently. All the technical work is now focused on a destination that your client wants to get to. And if you know what the destination is, before you start, you spend less time going sideways and more time going towards the finish line. That's part of this eyes up mentality. And then proactive communication. Anticipate the potential risks that your clients might face. I mean, you can look at this picture. You don't have to be an expert driver to look at this picture and say, hey, you know what? Something might go wrong. Now, if you got to go up that hill, doesn't mean we're not going to try. But if we can anticipate there might be some risk, we might advise our client, maybe install a roll bar. Hey, you know what? I've got a helmet. Do you want a helmet to make sure if something does go wrong, it doesn't hurt real bad? It only hurts kind of bad? The authenticity of anticipating what could go wrong and having those conversations with your clients, the authenticity of addressing that in your proposal is a huge trust-building exercise. It shows the client you're watching out for them. You're looking ahead, you're looking down the road on their behalf, and that creates trust. And if your competitors aren't doing that because they're afraid to talk about risk, because boy, if we talk about risk, maybe the buyer is gonna, pick someone else who doesn't talk about risk. I'm gonna challenge you to try it. Talk about the risks in your proposal and watch your win rate go up. Clients like being heard. Who here loves risk? I mean, there's a few weird people like me who like go race cars and spin around and blow engines up on their birthday on the racetrack. It sucked. I'm glad I did it on my birthday because my wife was actually kind to me about it. Also, anticipate areas of high effort that the client needs to deal with. So that's another piece of proactivity. You've done this 100 times. Your technical staff have done this over and over and over again. They know what things go wrong. They know where stuff gets hard. Anticipate it. Talk to the client about it early. Help the client through it. So what's your eyes up foundation? This is the alignment for my race car from old to new, and the way the wheels angle help you go faster and not spin out quite as often, although I still do. So 6 ways to look ahead and stay aligned with clients. And this is that sub-theme of gathering insights. So we're talking about eyes up, we're talking about looking ahead, we're talking about anticipating the turn 2 or 3 turns in advance. So how do we practically, tactically, I gave you some ideas, kind of theoretical. These are 6 practical ways to elevate your eyes, elevate the eyes of your team, because you guys are here, you're learning, you're digesting this, but you got to go back home and get others to pull their eyes up too. And it's hard. So here's 6 very practical tools at your disposal that you can put in place to elevate the eyes across the organization. I've got white papers on almost every one of these, so at the end, if you want to shoot me a LinkedIn or an email, I'll be happy to send more details. This is more like, here's some tools, I'm not going deep into them, but I will have some case studies for each one of the 6. Any questions so far? All right. Important information about your clients is hidden. That means we need to go digging. If you want client insight, if you want to understand your clients, you've got to be intentional about finding those insights. And there's a couple of ways we're going to do that. So, insight tool number 1, client feedback. Who here has a formal, objective client feedback process? That's a couple. Okay. Client feedback is a supercharging tool for your organization to get client insight. No better way to get insight than just ask for it. So to do client feedback well, get feedback early. I got a text from the Aloft after I checked in saying, hey, how's your stay going so far? If the room was problematic, what could they do? They could fix it. If they send me the survey after I've checked out, what could they do? Nothing. So don't wait for the project to be over to get feedback. Get feedback early in the project. That's eyes up, you're looking ahead. If after the kickoff meeting the client says, hey, you're kind of 4 degrees off of true north, the sooner you find out you're 4 degrees off of true north, the sooner your team can get back on the right path. You're going to get to the finish line faster. Get feedback often. Has there ever been a perfect project? I think the only perfect project's the one that you win, you get paid for, and never actually happens. I actually had one of those. I had a client, I did dinner at a conference with the client. We talked, first meeting, he asked me price, I told him a number. 2 weeks later, I had a check in the mailbox. And then he never answered my calls or emails. So that was 14 years ago. So I still owe David one, if he ever calls. But that was my only perfect project. I wish I could have 100 of those. Involve the right people. You guys, marketing, business development, you're savvy, you're empathetic, you listen. Is that common across the technical staff? But who ultimately owns the relationship and owns acting on the feedback? It's that front line. So if your client feedback isn't ending up in the hands of the front line to where they can action it and respond to the client, you might have eyes up, and it might help you in marketing, but your technical staff don't have their eyes up, and they're not going to be able to use the information to drive a better outcome. Don't worry about the scores. I have a metrics company. Like, we have the client feedback tool. Like, data is my thing. I moneyball my son's baseball team because I love data. So the guy who invented a client feedback platform, I'm telling you, the scores don't matter. And if you make the scores matter, people are going to not ask for feedback when they need it most. Failure has to be okay. The reason why I put my kids on the racetrack is because I know at some point in life they're going to fail, and I'd rather them do it in a controlled environment rather than out there on the road where they can hurt themselves or somebody else. So it's not the scores that matter, it's what you do with the information and what you learn from the information and how you act on it. So to do feedback well, follow up instantly. We've done research, we've done over 3 million client surveys. When you document follow-up to a low score, there's an 83% reduction in getting a low score from that client again, even on different projects. You want to sell client feedback to your technical team? Go offer to get rid of 83% of their client problems. So a couple of stories. Working with the firm up in Chicago, and one of their clients responded to a survey and said, "It'd be great if you'd spend more time on site with us." Innocuous comment. There were no low scores. Like, all the feedback was positive, but just this little comment. "It'd be great if you spent more time on site with us." One of their project managers said, "The client's office is on my way to work. I'll stop by a couple times a week." That's it. 6 months later, they had tripled their revenue from that client. The client just wanted someone to be there. And boy, if I'm here and I'm just coming in to say hi, maybe dropping off some donuts or whatever, like, "Oh, hey, while you're here, I got this thing. Can you help me?" And since you're the one that shows up, you can help. So how did they go from pole position to sole position? They started showing up when their competitors weren't. I mean, that work was being given to someone else before. Now it's being given to them. That's eyes up right there. There's another firm. This is SME. If you want their website, here's a QR code to their website. Marketers, I encourage you to go to the website. It's really cool. They publish their client feedback on their website. They're helping potential customers become real customers. When you go on Amazon and you search for something, what's the first thing you filter by? 4 stars and up? Did you know the same people that go on Amazon and shop are the same ones that buy AEC services? So if the way human beings make purchase decisions on Amazon influences the way they make purchase decisions on AEC services, if we don't have an Amazon star rating, how are they going to know that you're going to be good? So they keep going back to the old guys they've been working with forever because at least I know them. So if you're trying to attract new customers, you've got to put your data up there to build trust. So that's, again, eyes up. Client interviews, insights number 2. And this is really a great one for marketers and business developers. Client feedback, doing like electronic feedback, that can be done with the frontline interviews, usually better done by a third party than by the frontline themselves, especially a third party that's got some empathy. Someone who's not going to show up defensive in the conversation. Worked with a structural engineering firm out in San Francisco, and they did a series of client interviews. They took one guy out to lunch, and at lunch, the client said, "No one's ever asked me for feedback before. I've got 2 projects I was getting ready to put out to bid, but since you took me to lunch and asked me for some feedback, I'm just going to give them to you." That's $250,000 in fee. Their average cost of proposal was $11,000 a proposal. That's $22,000 they saved. I mean, it's great, right? Eyes up. Let your clients know you care. It's amazing what they'll tell you. They will tell you how to win their business. They will tell you exactly what they want and need if you just ask. Client panels. Has anyone done a client panel before? Guys, this is so much fun. Really easy tool for you in this room to take back, put into practice. It's not hard. We just did 4 client panels at 4 different regional offices for Withers Ravenel. They're down here in the southeast, if you guys know Withers Ravenel. And they brought in 3 to 4 clients. They'd bring in 2 or 3 dozen of their frontline staff, project managers, regional leadership. And I had the pleasure of moderating 2 of the panels. They had one of their people moderate 2 of the panels and just ask the client questions for an hour and a half. And so there was like an hour of scripted questions where we had prepared and talked with the panelists in advance. But then there was 30 minutes of Q&A. And man, hands were going up. The frontline loved this venue where they could just ask questions. And really fun one. One of the clients, to a room full of project managers, and this was like one of their top 3 revenue clients that they do not have 100% share of wallet with, said, "We as an organization always pick the most expensive option. It's usually the best." And how many project managers were sitting in that room saying, how many times have I lost an opportunity with this client because I negotiated against myself? This is like a true story. Like, we recorded it. Like, we've got it on tape. The things that happen when you invite clients in to share what's on their mind and you let your frontline staff see and hear what clients really think and feel, game-changing. Game-changing. It's easy to do. Clients want to be, like, they were thrilled to be invited. Every client that walked away has since increased their spend with the company. They felt honored to be a part of it. They felt important. They felt valued. So if you've got a growth client you really want to grow, strategically place them on your panel. Empathy mapping. Has anyone heard of empathy mapping before? I've got a really detailed white paper on this. Like, it's Post-it notes on the wall. I've got the Amazon shopping list of the different colored sticky notes to make it really easy. So if you guys want to do this, I've got the whole how-to guide. Empathy mapping is when you look at the client's journey from beginning to end, from before they're a prospect all the way through to after the project's over and they wonder where you went. And you take your internal team. You're not involving clients in this. This is where we start moving towards, what can we see? What can we discover? Then you're literally mapping out the client's experience empathetically. And you're mapping it on the wall. And you're looking at the 5 key phases of the client journey. You got entice, that's when they first connect their need to your brand promise. Enter, that's from first contact to signing of the contract. Engage is working on the project. Exit, all the stuff you're doing to close out the project, final invoicing, etc. And then extend is that part of the relationship where they're living with the work you've done, but you're not necessarily there anymore. You don't have a reason to be there anymore. And when you really start looking at the client journey empathetically and you're putting yourself in their shoes and you start understanding what are they trying to accomplish, what are they trying to do, without ever having to actually talk to a client, you'll discover some insights and some amazing ways to pull your eyes up. So one firm up in Philadelphia that we work with, we had 2 teams. One was mapping Cowboy Jim. That was the persona that we mapped, Cowboy Jim's journey. And then we had Corporate James on the other wall. Now this is a group that does land development. So they kind of have 2 big clients. They've got local developers and they've got like the corporate giants. So in their case, like Chick-fil-A is one of their clients and they hire this firm to put a Chick-fil-A in 27 spots in this region every year. So as they're empathetically going through and trying to understand what's Cowboy Jim trying to do, like what is he thinking about? What are his needs? Well, he's all about the deal. He's all about, like he's probably got 3 kids who are in the business and they're going to inherit it when he's gone. So he's a deal maker. He's a hustle. Well, what happens to a shopping center when a Chick-fil-A goes in? Phew, right? Now, what happens when Cowboy Jim buys a decrepit old shopping center and rehabilitates it? The corporate guy he's not worried about legacy. He's focused on his career and advancement and making his pro forma work. So what they did was they said, they have compatible needs, or two different clients, they have compatible needs, but now that we understand that, we're gonna do a weekly newsletter only to our clients and prospects, and we're gonna tell corporate James all the redevelopment projects we know of, so we can help him start finding some sites that are gonna be revitalized. And every time we hear about a Chick-fil-A going in, we're going to the Cowboy Gyms and saying, hey, there's a Chick-fil-A going in on this corner. Maybe the shopping center there or right across the street is going to start seeing a lot more traffic all of a sudden. Now, what does that have to do with being a site survey engineer? Right? But they're using empathy to pull their eyes up, looking further ahead at what clients are trying to accomplish, and then connecting some dots. Man, why would I ever go to another engineering firm? So there's so many things like that. Like, it's not hard stuff. I mean, they already have all the information. It's not hard stuff, but it's meaningful and it makes an impact. Journey mapping is like maybe that next layer down. Empathy mapping, like a team can do it in like 3 hours. It's fun, it's kind of high level. You'll find some great insights. Journey mapping is when you really get technical, and this is impossible to read on purpose because this is what mapping a journey looks like. We worked with an architecture firm that mapped out a typical mid-sized 6-month architecture project. There were 177 steps, and there were 13 stakeholders, and they mapped all the interactions. Journey mapping is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. But you can really find some detailed information in there that's going to pull your eyes up. For example, that firm that kind of mapped out the whole thing, they found that there was a pain point in invoicing. And the pain point in invoicing was, I send you my invoice, and it's got all this stuff on it. Well, in order for their university clients to approve the invoice, they had to cross-reference everything back to the original contract. So I just give you an invoice, I need you to pay it, net 30. What do you have to do now? Got to go find the contract. I've got to pull it out. I've got to start cross-referencing. I've got to maybe print copies and highlight and make sure everything, no wonder why it takes 97 days to pay the invoice. Who's got time for that? But when you start understanding that journey and you see all the little teeny tiny details along the way, this architecture firm said, hey, we're going to attach the original signed agreement with every invoice. Yeah, I know we're going to invoice you 8 times on this project. Put a copy on every time. And we're going to do our work breakdown structure so it shows up on the invoice exactly the way it's broken down in the proposal. And we're going to work with the proposal team to make sure they're writing the proposal exactly the way it's going to be on the work breakdown structure so that when I send you an invoice, it takes 5 minutes. Their AR went down 17 days. And that may not, I heard some people at lunch talking about, I went to a session, there was too much finance in it, so I don't want to bore you with finance. Go back to your office and talk to your CFO and say, what would happen to the business if AR went down 17 days? And she said, I will buy you a cake if you can make that happen. I promise you. It's a very meaningful thing. Cash flow is huge in this industry. The last insight tool, again, this is using stuff you have inside, is operational data. Sometimes it's called OX. CX is client experience data. That's like feedback, net promoter score, stuff like that. Operational data is sometimes called OX. And when you can combine insights about your clients with other metrics you have internally, the world opens up. You can see so many things. Share of wallet. Who knows what your share of wallet is? Well, you can use your win rate as a pretty good proxy. If we're proposing on $3 million of work with them a year and we're winning $1 million of work a year, we know our share of wallet can't be higher than 30%. And that's assuming we're proposing on everything we could propose on, all right? So you can use data that you have. Marketing data is in here. These are just 8. I've got a list of 67 pieces of data you can use to gain insights on your client. So if anyone wants that list for some reason, I'll be happy to share that with you as well. So here's a firm. This is a law firm on the West Coast we work with, and they're using client sentiment to predict revenue churn. So what that means is they're doing client feedback, and the clients tell them, am I a raving fan? Am I eh? Well, then they start looking at the spending habits of those clients. What they found was they took their 2021 data, and then their 2021 client feedback data, and then we looked at spending 21 versus 2022. By 2022, 93% of their raving fans came back. Only 75% of their non-raving fans came back. Well, said another way, your non-raving fans are 3.6 times more likely to stop doing business with you. Well, if you can identify last year that they're unhappy, what could you do about that? Could you avoid the churn? Could you keep that revenue? It's so hard to go find new clients. And we got this amazing indicator here that tells us we got someone who's at red line, it's about to blow, or about to lose this client. And we took it a step further, and we're able to find that every time a client responded with anything less than "I love you," it was costing them $81,000 in lost billings. So eyes up, what are you doing? When you get that first inclination from a client that they're not happy, how much money are we willing to invest in the relationship to turn that around? By quantifying it, by putting numbers on it, it lets them make rational business decisions about how much love are we going to put into this. Am I going to go spend $100,000 to save an $80,000 account? It all makes sense. But can we enable the front line to, spend $5,000 of unbilled time working on turning a relationship around? Like, they don't need permission for that because we built the business case and it makes sense. So that's eyes up. We're looking further ahead so we can enable the outcomes we want rather than losing control. So any questions on those before we move to the value creation piece? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So would it be all people from one client?
It depends on the situation. The 4 that we did for Withers Ravenel, they had one really big client, so we had 3 members of that one client. All the other panels we did, they had 4 different client organizations, one person from each. Yep. So there was a facilitator who interviewed each panelist one-on-one and asked them questions so that we kind of knew what questions to ask live. So that was about an hour of the hour and a half, and then there was 30 minutes where the audience could just ask their own questions. Every one of the panelists stuck around an extra hour and a half because there was a synthesis phase where now the project managers got into like teams of 5 or 6 at like a easel to brainstorm. What did we hear? What actions are we going to take on that? And every client stuck around and joined a team and helped Withers Ravenel redesign how they're taken care of. I mean, that's how committed your clients are because it's their success that they're investing in. Great question. So value creation, 6 steps to value creation. Let's define value. Value. I'm better off with you than without you. It's a pretty straightforward definition. I'm better off with you in my life than without you in my life. You want to be the pole position? This is the threshold. I'm better with you than with anybody else. Why would I go to anyone else? Because when I'm with you, I'm better. So value creation, we know what the definition of value is. Value creation, the process of giving a client more of what they want. I'm better when you're in my life. Value creation is finding ways to give them more of that. Client experience is doing that in a way that they enjoy receiving the value. So what does a client really want? Let's say you're the world's best seat installer people. That's what you do. Your website's all about how well you install seats. Is that what clients really want? Who can guess what the client here wants? This is a client's business. You're involved in installing seats. That's the part you do. What does the client really want? A reliable product. What else? What? Peace of mind. What else do they want? What? To sell cars. If you're manufacturing cars, what are you trying to do? Sell them. It's not hard. But we get so focused on navel gazing on we're the best seat installers in the world, and we lose track on the bigger picture of what the client's trying to accomplish. So every one of your clients has a graph that looks like this. And you're selling them, I forgot I can draw on the screen. You're selling them this. Oops. Yeah. Maybe. You're selling them this, but this is really what they're trying to accomplish. So look at your client's business. What are they trying to accomplish? What's their output? And then, now look at your marketing. Are you talking about your seats anymore? Or are you talking about how you're enabling them to move as many units as possible? And seats is just a part of the process. Look at your proposal. Is your proposal all about how great you are installing seats? Or is your proposal all about how your other clients using your seats increase their output by 1.2%? It's the same thing. You're just framing it eyes up from the client's perspective. So value creation. This is how you present it to a client. You want the client to say, I know something new. I didn't see how the way we install the seats increases throughput per hour or increases units built per month. I didn't see that. Next level up of value, I know what to do now. So you kind of have data over here, right? You have some insights over here. I got the data, now I know what to do with the data. How you really partner with the client is this third tier, proved it with results. Gensler does a lot of commercial interior design. They sell pretty offices, right? You know what they do? They talk to their clients beforehand and say, what are you trying to accomplish? Oh, you've got a talent retention challenge. What's your employee turnover look right now? Oh, you've got a productivity challenge. How are you measuring productivity? What does that look like? Well, now that we know we've got a retention problem or a productivity problem, does that shape everything about how they design that space? It should. And then after the project's over, you know what they do? We're going to check in 6 months and see what your turnover is like. And we're going to check in 12 months, and we're going to see what turnover's like. And we're going to check in 2 years from now, and we're going to see what turnover's like to make sure the project's performing to accomplish what you wanted it to accomplish. Now it hasn't become about the architecture at all. It's become about the business that hired them. And when you start capturing those results and you share the results back to your client's, man, you really care about me. You understood what matters. You were looking up, you're looking ahead, and you helped me accomplish something. I've never had an architect do that before. And who are they going to refer to? All of their colleagues and peers. And if they have more work to give, who do they want to invite in? It's not even about the design anymore. It's about the results that I care about. So I got lost my click. Maybe. So how do you create value? How do you know what the client cares about? Well, you've got specific value creation. Sometimes they tell you. Sometimes they put it in the RFP. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. So you know. Sometimes you have to discover the value opportunity. You've got to ask. And it's amazing. If you ask clients, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? What does value look like to you? They'll tell you. And then you have the assumed business goal or need. If you understand their industry, maybe it's one of those, they send the RFP out and now you're in the cone of silence. You can't talk to them and they didn't tell you what they're really trying to accomplish. And so they didn't give you one. You can't ask for two. What are you stuck with? You got to make some assumptions. So talk to your project team. What do we know about this industry? What do we know about this client? What do we think they're trying to do? And then let's let that frame our proposal strategy. So what is the specific deliverable that reveals, proves, or creates value? You got to answer this question before you write the proposal. What is the specific deliverable that reveals, proves, or creates value to the client? Because if we don't know, if this is what success is, we're delivering to the client something meaningful and valuable. If we don't know what the deliverable is that's going to tell that message, we can't sell it. We can't differentiate on it. And how in the world are our frontline teams going to deliver on it if we haven't clearly defined it up front? So answer this question before you put the first pen or the first letter on the page when you write the proposal. What is the specific deliverable that reveals, proves, or creates value? Working with an architecture firm that was pursuing an opportunity to do the prototype store for an auto parts house, like a Napa AutoZone type thing. And if you're doing a prototype store, if you win that project, what have you really won? 300 projects? So it's a big deal. Now, does anyone have experience with auto parts stores? Okay, we don't. Good. Let's practice some empathy. What do you think the VP of real estate that's going to make the decision, what do you think he or she cares about? A profitable store? What else?
Square foot, like maybe it's profit.
Great. If you're in the retail industry, gross sales per square foot is one of like the top 3 metrics. Go read anything in the Wall Street Journal, HBR about retail, like brick and mortar retail. They're always going to report retail sales per square foot. It's just a metric that everybody in that industry cares about. Do they care how pretty the building looks? Only insofar that it maximizes retail sales per square foot. The other metric is operating cost per square foot. So once they had that in mind, that framed how they wrote the proposal. Now the whole proposal was, here's our process of how we're going to maximize retail sales per square foot. Well, guess what? We probably need to go do a whole bunch of research. We probably need to analyze your existing 800 stores and see which ones are performing best. We probably need to go do site visits to the top performing stores that are doing retail sales by square foot, top 10%. That's a whole bunch of time. What is that? That's a whole bunch of scope. What is that? That's a whole bunch of fee. What does that do? It makes yours way more expensive than anybody else who's proposing. And do they pay for it? Because you're talking their language. Everyone else is talking about how we're going to make beautiful architecture, and there's one in the room who's talking about how we're going to make you a successful business. And I will pay for that. They were 3 times more expensive than second place, and they won. So we're at the home stretch, just on time. So as you're breaking through this, what is the value creator for each client? Then you got to ask yourself, what is the data that we need to measure that value creator? How do we organize that data? How do we present that data in a way that's easy to read and articulate? How does that data reveal what action to take? Either we're going to take or the client needs to take based on that data. And then let's think about ourselves. I've talked about the clients all day so far. But if we do all that, let's think about us. How do we capture the value? If you're solving a $1 million problem and it cost you $1,000 to fix it, have you done right by your shareholders if you charge $1,000? No. If you just found $1 million and you're only charging $1,000 to pick it up, you're missing out on some huge value opportunities. And it's not selfish, it's not immoral to make money. When you create value, capture the value, and when you capture that value, reinvest a portion of that in taking better care of your clients. Reinvest a portion of that in building out your team with the best experts. Reinvest a portion of that in paying above average salaries to your staff. I mean, there's some amazing things you can do, and when you do that, your client sees a highly engaged workforce because they're well compensated and they're not leaving and turning over. So as a client, I'm not dealing with disruptions to my projects because 17% of the staff leave every year. It's moral and ethical and reasonable, and it's good client experience to be very well compensated for what we do because it helps us solve so many other problems that distract from our value. So what are your eyes up strategies? Have I missed any? Is anyone else doing something that they think is eyes up in their business? You what?
Client org charts,
You're tracking client org charts. Why do you do that?
so we know who's going where, who's making moves, what teams have changed. We know the internal structure of our clients that we're working with currently and that we're changing.
Excellent. Great eyes up strategy. You're never going to go wrong capturing more knowledge about your clients than your competitors. It's brilliant. Good work. What else?
Meet new client managers,
Okay.
make sure that they're getting the things for everything that we provide them.
Guys, if you haven't implemented client success managers in your firm yet, I know you're marketing, you maybe don't have that moral authority in the firm, but start spreading the bug. If you haven't implemented client success managers whose job is to be that internal voice to always advocate for their customers, you're missing a huge opportunity. And you know what? The best ones aren't in the industry. So you're trying to solve the talent war? Teachers make amazing client success managers. Really, really great cross industry, and they're so happy to work for a lot less than an engineer will. So you can take the engineers off of client management. They kind of suck at it anyway. Let them focus on their technical work and go get some people who are good at building relationships to manage the relationships. The engineers are like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do all that people stuff anymore. And you've got some very cost-effective, available talent to manage the relationship. It's brilliant. Great. Any other eyes up strategies? I did promise I've got like a dozen ebooks if you want like the ebook on empathy mapping or how to do client feedback or any of those things. This is my LinkedIn. So send me a connection, send me a message. You can also email me, ryan@clientsavvy.com. Make your request if you want the slides. I will gladly share the slide deck with you. So just reach out to me, let me know what I can give you, and if I don't have it, I'll write it and give it to you. There's a couple of ebooks I need to write and I haven't, so I'm waiting for someone to ask. So do me a favor, motivate me. Everyone ready to go? If you want to be around a network of peers who care about this stuff, there's a conference in Raleigh next month, April 23rd, all about client experience. We have some great speakers. There's a panel of CX leaders. There's 5 case studies, and then there's going to be 5 roundtables where the case study people come and sit with you for an hour and 40 minutes. And like there's a roundtable on client panel, so if you want to come really dig in, Withers Ravenel is moderating, like they're sharing their case study and they're moderating a table on how to do client panels well. So come join us for that if you want to do that. That's to the website. Any other questions? I didn't time bust my first time through. That's great. Any other questions? Guys, thank you so much. You're a wonderful audience. I appreciate it.